I heard water dripping from the basement at 2 in the morning, exactly 3 months after my son died, and I had promised with everything I had that I would never go down there. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Because what I'm about to tell you, I haven't told anyone. Not the police, not even my sister. My son, Ethan, was 34 years old when he left me this house in his will. The last time we spoke, his voice shook on the phone. "Mom, promise me, never go into the basement. Just don't, please." I asked him why. "Because I love you too much." 3 days later, a car accident. He died at the scene. The funeral was a Tuesday. Rain came down in sheets. I stood there with an umbrella someone handed me, watching them lower the casket, and all I could think about was that phone call. The way his voice broke when he said, "Please," like he was asking me to save his life, not lock a door. I moved into his house the following week. It was the only thing he owned outright. The mortgage was paid, the deed had my name on it. Everything else, his bank accounts, his car, whatever was left went through probate. But the house was mine immediately. For 3 months, I lived there alone. I never opened the basement door. I walked past it every day, touched the handle once, just once. My hand was on the knob and I heard his voice again. "Just don't, please." So I let go. But last night, the dripping started. Steady, wet, rhythmic. I knew it wasn't a normal pipe leak. It sounded deliberate, like someone was turning a faucet on and off, like someone was using water. I stood in front of the basement door at 2:13 a.m., my phone in my hand. If I went down there, I would break the last promise I ever made to my son. But if I didn't, and someone was down there, someone who needed help, I would have to live with that. I put my hand on the door. The dripping stopped. Then I heard something else. Breathing. Shallow. Fast. Like someone was waiting. I didn't wait for morning. My hand shook as I turned the knob. "I'm sorry, Ethan, but if someone needs help, I can't ignore it." The door opened without a sound. The hinges had been oiled recently. That detail stopped me for a second. Someone had been going in and out. The wooden steps were old but solid. I held the railing and went down slowly. The smell hit me halfway. Mildew, damp concrete, and something else. Something chemical. Antiseptic. The overhead bulb flickered when I pulled the chain. Weak yellow light spread across the space. It wasn't what I expected. This wasn't a storage room. It wasn't boxes and holiday decorations and forgotten furniture. The basement was wide, clean, and in the far corner, someone had set up a living area. A mattress on the floor, a small folding table, a lamp, blankets. And then I saw them. A young woman and a child, both asleep on the mattress. The woman's face was turned toward the wall, but I could see the bruise, dark purple, spreading from her cheekbone to her jaw. The little girl was curled against her, one tiny hand clutching the woman's shirt. I must have made a noise, a breath, a step. The woman's eyes snapped open. She sat up fast, pulling the child behind her. Her eyes went wide, terrified. "Please don't call the police, please." Her voice cracked. But I had already seen the bandage wrapped around her arm. Blood soaking through the gauze. Fresh blood. I pulled my phone from my pocket. 911. "What's your emergency?" The woman started crying, shaking her head. "You don't understand. He'll find us." Within 15 minutes, my house was full of people. Paramedics came first, then 2 police officers. The ambulance lights turned the living room blue and red, flashing against the walls. A young EMT knelt beside the woman in the basement. He checked her arm, asked her questions in a low voice. She wouldn't look at him. She kept her eyes on the little girl. One of the officers came over to me. "Ma'am, did you know these people were down here?" "No. My son, he didn't tell me." The officer wrote something in his notepad. "Your son? He passed away. 3 months ago. This is his house. Was his house." The officer looked at me differently then. "I'm sorry for your loss." He went back downstairs. I heard him talking to the woman. "Miss, can you tell me your name?" "Sarah." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Sarah Thompson. And the child?" "Emma. She's 2. The officer asked more questions. I couldn't hear the answers, but I heard Sarah say one thing clearly. He told me to stay here. He said I'd be safe. They took Sarah to the hospital. The wound on her arm wasn't life-threatening, but she was in shock. Emma wouldn't stop crying. I picked her up before they loaded Sarah into the ambulance. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now." Emma buried her face in my shoulder. She smelled like baby shampoo and basement air. The officers said they'd come back in the morning to ask more questions. They told me to lock the doors, stay inside, call if I saw anything unusual. After they left, I carried Emma upstairs and put her in the guest bedroom. She was asleep before I turned off the light. Then I went back down to the basement. I needed to understand what my son had done. The space looked different now. The paramedics had left gauze wrappers on the floor. The mattress was pushed to one side, but the rest was untouched. I walked to the corner Sarah had been using as a kitchen. A mini fridge, the kind college students keep in dorm rooms. Inside, milk, juice boxes, sandwich meat, cheese, baby formula. On the shelf above the fridge, children's books, board books with bright colors. A stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. This wasn't a temporary hiding place. This was a home. On the folding table, I found a notebook, black cover, the kind with a spiral binding. I opened it. Ethan's handwriting. Day 1. She knocked at 3 a.m., face covered in blood. I didn't ask questions. I just opened the door. I turned the pages. The entries were dated, irregular at first, then more frequent. Day 5. Emma won't stop crying. Sarah says she's never been away from him this long. I don't know what to do. I'm not a father. Day 12. Bought more diapers? More formula? I'm going through my savings faster than I thought. Day 23. Sarah told me his name today. Brandon Reed. She showed me the restraining order. It expired 6 months ago. She was too scared to renew it. I kept reading. Month 3. Brandon called today. Said he knows I'm hiding her. Said if I don't give her back, there will be consequences. I told him to go to hell. Then I changed all the locks. My chest tightened. The last entry was dated 1 week before Ethan died. Month 8. My brakes felt strange today. Took the car to Joe's. He said the line was cut, not completely, but enough. I know who did this. If you're reading this, Mom, it means I didn't make it. Keep them safe, please. I closed the notebook. My hands were shaking. In the drawer beneath the table, I found a folder. Printed pages from the internet. Articles. Court records. Brandon Reed. 3 restraining orders from 3 different women. 2 arrests for domestic violence. Both cases dropped when the victims recanted. Photos, police reports, hospital records for Sarah, fractured ribs, concussion, bruised kidney. And at the bottom of the folder, a handwritten note in Ethan's writing. If he finds Mom's address, it's over. My phone rang. 4 in the morning. The hospital. Mrs. Morgan? This is Nurse Patterson. Sarah Thompson is asking for you. This war has only just begun. The next morning, I drove to the hospital with Emma in the back seat. She didn't cry. She just stared out the window, her thumb in her mouth. Sarah was sitting up in bed when I walked in. The bruise on her face looked worse in the daylight, yellow at the edges, deep purple in the center. Her arm was wrapped in clean white bandages. Emma ran to her. "Mommy?" Sarah pulled her daughter onto the bed and held her. Then she looked at me. "I owe you the truth." I sat down in the chair by the window. "I'm listening." "Ethan saved my life. Literally." She took a breath. "Brandon and I dated for 2 years. He seemed perfect at first. Flowers, compliments. He paid for everything. My friends loved him. My mother loved him. When I got pregnant, everything changed. He became violent, not all at once. It started small, a grip on my arm that left bruises, a shove during an argument. Then it got worse. I tried to leave 3 times. He found me every time. The last time, I was 7 months pregnant. He broke my ribs. I thought he was going to kill me, kill both of us. I ran, just left. No bags, no phone, nothing but the clothes on my back. I walked to the bus station downtown. I was bleeding. I didn't know where to go. Ethan found me there. I don't know why he stopped. I was just some woman sitting on a bench, bleeding through her shirt. But he stopped. He asked if I was okay. I said no. He drove me to the emergency room, stayed with me the whole time. When they asked what happened, he said, "She's coming home with me." And then he looked at me and said, "You're not going back." Not ever. The door opened. A woman walked in. Tall, blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, expensive coat, sharp eyes. So this is where Ethan's money went. Sarah's face went pale. Victoria. Victoria looked at me. "Mrs. Morgan. I'm Ethan's ex-wife. We need to talk about his estate." I stood up. "This isn't the time." Victoria smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I think it's exactly the time. Ethan and I were married for 7 years. I'm entitled to know where his assets went. And it looks like he spent quite a bit hiding his little charity case here. Get out." Victoria didn't move. "I'm not going anywhere, not until I get answers." Sarah reached into the drawer beside her bed. She pulled out something small. A bracelet. Silver, with a tiny charm in the shape of a star. She held it out to me. "Ethan gave this to Emma. He said, 'Tell her I'll always protect her.'" I took the bracelet. The metal was warm from Sarah's hand. Victoria was still talking, something about lawyers and money and what she deserved, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was looking at that bracelet, knowing time was running out to keep that promise. I left the hospital without saying another word to Victoria. Let her talk to empty air. Sarah needed to rest. Emma was safe in the hospital room. I needed to go home and think. When I got back to the house, I went straight to the basement. There had to be more answers, more explanations. Something that would help me understand why my son had died for 2 people I didn't even know existed. I moved the mattress aside. Underneath, in a black padded case, I found a laptop, old model, scratched cover. But when I opened it, the screen came to life. No password. On the desktop, a single folder. For Mom, if something happens. My hands shook as I double-clicked it. Inside, 3 video files. I clicked the first one. Ethan's face filled the screen. He looked tired, older than I remembered. But his eyes were clear. "Mom, if you're watching this, it means I didn't make it." I had to stop the video. Just for a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I pressed play again. Sarah came to me 8 months ago. She was running from a man who wanted to kill her. His name is Brandon Reed. He's dangerous. He has connections. Money. People who look the other way. I couldn't let her go to a shelter. He'd find her. He always found her. I couldn't call the police. She has no proof. And he'd use the system to get joint custody of Emma. He'd take that little girl, and Sarah would never see her again. So I hid them. In the one place I knew was safe. The house I was going to leave you. I never told you because if Brandon found out you knew, he'd come after you too. This way, if something happened to me, you could claim ignorance. You didn't know. You were protected. Ethan looked down. When he looked back up, his eyes were wet. "I'm not Emma's biological father, but I'm her protector. And if I die, you're the only one left who can keep them safe. Mom, I know this is a lot to ask, but please, don't let him find them." The video ended. I sat there in the basement, in the dark, holding the laptop. My phone rang. Sarah. Her voice was shaking. "He found me." Brandon called the hospital. "He knows I'm here." "How?" "I don't know. I didn't tell anyone." "Did anyone visit you? Anyone besides me?" There was silence. Then Victoria. She was in my room. She took a photo of Emma. She asked questions. About Ethan. About where we lived before. My blood went cold. "What did you tell her?" "Nothing, I swear." But she kept asking. She wanted to know where Ethan got his money, if he had savings, if he'd left anything for Emma. I stood up. "Pack your things. I'm coming to get you." "I can't leave," the doctor said. "Pack your things, Sarah." I hung up. 1 minute later, my phone rang again. Different number. "Mrs. Morgan? This is Officer Davis. We spoke last night." "Yes. We have a situation. A man named Brandon Reed filed a missing person report for Sarah Thompson. He claims she kidnapped his daughter. He's demanding custody. We're required to investigate. She didn't kidnap anyone. That's his daughter. But he's been... Ma'am, I understand. But he has legal standing. He's the biological father. He's demanding a custody hearing. The officer kept talking. Something about courts and lawyers and temporary placement. I wasn't listening anymore. Because I heard it through the phone. Through the officer's words. A car, pulling into my driveway. I looked through the window beside the front door. A man stood on my porch, tall, built like someone who spent time in a gym. Dark hair cut short. He was talking on his phone, calm, relaxed. The doorbell rang. I didn't move. He knocked. 3 times. Hard. I know she's here. His voice carried through the door. I know Ethan was hiding her. He wasn't yelling. That was what scared me. His voice was cold, controlled. I just want to see my daughter. I pulled my phone out, called 911 for the second time in 12 hours. There's a man at my door. He's threatening me. The operator asked questions. Address, description. Was he armed? I don't know. Stay inside, ma'am. Officers are on their way. Brandon didn't leave. He didn't bang on the door. Didn't shout. He just stood there, waiting. Like he had all the time in the world. Then another car pulled up. Victoria. She got out, smoothed her coat, and walked up to my porch like she'd been invited. She said something to Brandon. He nodded. They talked for maybe 30 seconds. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard enough. She's inside. Ethan kept records. You could sue for custody. My blood turned to ice. Victoria was helping him. The police arrived 3 minutes later. 2 squad cars, 4 officers. Brandon stepped back from the door, put his hands up, smiled. Officer, I'm just trying to find my daughter. Her mother kidnapped her. I filed a report this morning. One of the officers came to the door. I opened it. Ma'am, do you know this man? No. Do you know where Sarah Thompson is? She's at the hospital, with her daughter, and she didn't kidnap anyone. That little girl is her child. The officer looked at Brandon. Sir, do you have documentation proving paternity? Brandon pulled a folded paper from his jacket. Birth certificate? Right here. Emma Reed. Father, Brandon Reed. Mother, Sarah Thompson. The officer studied it. This appears legitimate. Victoria stepped forward. Officer, I can provide additional context. I was married to Ethan Morgan, the man who was hiding Miss Thompson. He had a history of poor judgment. This woman manipulated him. She's done this before, using men to hide from her responsibilities. That's a lie. Victoria looked at me. Is it? Did you know your son spent over $30,000 in 8 months supporting this woman? Money that should have gone to his estate? The officer held up his hand. Ma'am, we're not here to discuss finances. Mr. Reed has legal standing to request a welfare check on his daughter. I looked at Brandon. He was watching me, still smiling. I know what you did. Brandon's smile didn't change. I don't know what you're talking about. My son's brakes. They were cut. 1 week before he died. Ma'am. The officer's voice was firm. If you have evidence of a crime, you need to file a report. Right now, we're dealing with a custody matter. Brandon took a step closer. Your son was interfering with a custody matter. I have lawyers. I have rights. And now that he's gone, there's no one left to stop me. The officers asked more questions, took notes, told Brandon he couldn't enter my property without a warrant, told him to leave. He did. But before he got in his car, he turned back. See you in court, Mrs. Morgan. Victoria left with him. I stood in my doorway and watched them drive away. Walls might have ears. That night, after the police left, after Brandon and Victoria drove away, I went back down to the basement and opened the laptop again. There were 3 videos in the folder. I'd only watched the first one. I clicked the second. Ethan's face appeared. Same tired eyes. But this time, he looked directly at the camera. Like he was looking at me. Mom, I know this sounds crazy, but I've been documenting everything. Every threat Brandon made. Every text he sent Sarah. Every time he showed up somewhere he shouldn't have been. I kept records, dates, times, screenshots. There's a safety deposit box at First National Bank. The key is taped under the basement workbench, under the middle drawer. Inside that box is everything you need. Police reports Sarah filed before she ran. Photos of her injuries. Restraining orders Brandon violated. Hospital records. And something else. Proof that Victoria knows Brandon. They went to the same law firm 2 years ago. They know each other. And I think they're planning something. The video ended. I went to the workbench, flipped the middle drawer upside down. There, taped to the bottom with duct tape, was a small brass key. A label attached. First National Bank, Box 447. The next morning, I drove to the bank. Brought Ethan's will, the death certificate, and the letter from the estate attorney. The bank manager checked the documents, made copies, and led me to a private room lined with metal boxes. She pulled out box 447, set it on the table, left me alone. I lifted the lid. Papers, thick stacks of them, a USB drive, and a manila envelope with Mom written on the front in Ethan's handwriting. I opened the envelope first. Inside, a letter. Mom, if you're reading this, Brandon has probably found them. Don't give Sarah up. Use this evidence. Get a restraining order. Protect Emma. She's innocent in all of this. I love you. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. Ethan. I set the letter down. Picked up the USB drive. The bank had a computer in the room for customers to use. I plugged in the drive. One audio file, dated 2 months before Ethan died. I clicked play. Victoria's voice came through the speakers. So you're the father Sarah's been hiding from? A man's voice. Brandon. She took my kid, turned her against me. Ethan was protecting her. He spent money, a lot of money, money that should have been mine in the divorce. If you help me get custody, I'll split whatever we recover from his estate. There was a long silence on the recording. Then Victoria spoke again. Deal. But we need to be smart. Can't look like we're working together. The recording ended. I sat there, staring at the computer screen. They'd planned this. 2 months before Ethan died, before his brakes were cut, before the accident. I turned to the papers in the box. Court documents. 3 restraining orders against Brandon Reed. 3 different women, all filed in different counties. All expired or dismissed when the victim stopped cooperating. Police reports. Sarah Thompson filed 4 reports over 2 years. Domestic disturbance, assault, harassment. Each one was investigated. Each one was closed when Sarah refused to press charges. I understood. She was scared. He'd threatened her. He always found her. Photos, hospital records. Sarah's face bruised beyond recognition. Broken ribs, fractured wrist, split lip. The medical notes all said the same thing. Injuries consistent with domestic violence. More photos. Texts from Brandon to Sarah. You can't hide forever. I'll find you. Emma needs her father. You're making this worse for yourself. At the bottom of the box, a notarized statement. Signed by Ethan. Dated 1 week before he died. I, Ethan Morgan, am writing this statement of my own free will. I believe Brandon Reed poses a danger to Sarah Thompson and her daughter Emma. I have been helping them stay hidden for their safety. If anything happens to me, I want it on record that Brandon Reed threatened me multiple times. He knows where I live. He knows about this house. My brakes were tampered with this week. I took my car to Joe's auto shop, and the mechanic confirmed the brake line was partially cut. I fear my accident may not be an accident. Signed, notarized, legal. I took photos of everything with my phone, every document, every police report, every photo, the notarized statement. Then I put it all back in the box, except the USB drive. That I kept. I drove home. Called a lawyer. Not the estate attorney. A different one. Someone who specialized in family law and restraining orders. Her name was Jennifer Hall. She agreed to see me that afternoon. I brought everything. The USB drive, the photos on my phone, Ethan's letter. She listened to the recording twice, looked through the photos, read the statement. Then she looked at me. Mrs. Morgan, this changes everything. Victoria and Brandon conspired. This isn't just a custody case. This could be criminal. Can we stop him from taking Emma? We can try. I'll file for an emergency restraining order on Sarah's behalf, and will present this evidence to the court. But I need to be honest with you. Brandon is the biological father. He has rights. Even with this evidence, a judge might grant him supervised visitation. Then we fight for supervised only. Jennifer nodded. We fight for supervised only. I left her office as the sun was setting. Got in my car, sat there in the parking lot. At the bottom of that safety deposit box, under all those documents, there had been one more thing. A sticky note in Ethan's handwriting. You're planning something they'd never expect. When I got home, I went straight back to the basement. The laptop was still on the folding table where I'd left it. There was one more video. I clicked it. Ethan appeared on screen. The date stamp in the corner said it was recorded 2 days before the accident. He was sitting in the basement, same corner where Sarah and Emma had been sleeping. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven. Mom, something's wrong. His voice was different. Tight, scared. Brandon has been following me. I've seen his car outside my work, outside the grocery store. He's not even hiding anymore. Yesterday, my brakes felt weird when I was driving home. I took the car to Joe's shop. He said someone cut the brake line. Not completely, just enough that it would fail eventually. Probably on the highway, or going downhill. Ethan looked away from the camera. When he looked back, his eyes were wet. I don't think this is an accident waiting to happen. I think this is planned. If something happens to me, promise me, don't let Brandon near Emma. Sarah is a good mother. She's scared, but she's strong. She's been through hell, and she's still here, still fighting for her daughter. Emma deserves to grow up safe. Not with a man who wants her as a possession. Not with someone who sees her as a weapon to hurt Sarah. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. I know I'm not her biological father, but I love her like she's mine, and that has to count for something. The video ended. I sat there in the dark. The laptop screen went black. The basement was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator in the corner. I looked around. At the mattress pushed against the wall, the children's books on the shelf, the stuffed rabbit with the missing ear, the folding table where Sarah had probably fed Emma breakfast 100 times while my son was upstairs, keeping watch. This was where he'd spent the last 8 months of his life, protecting people he barely knew, spending money he didn't have, risking everything. For the first time since the funeral, I cried. Not because I lost him. I'd already grieved that. This was different. I cried because I was proud. My son died protecting a child who wasn't his. He gave up his safety, his peace, maybe even his life, to keep a little girl safe from a man who would have destroyed her. And now it was my turn. I wiped my face, picked up my phone, called Jennifer Hall. She answered on the second ring. Mrs. Morgan? I need to file for emergency guardianship, for Emma, and I need a restraining order. We already filed for... No. I need 2 restraining orders, one against Brandon Reed and one against Victoria Morgan. There was silence on the line. Then Jennifer spoke. That's going to complicate things. Victoria doesn't have legal standing in this case. She's helping him. She told him where to find Sarah. She's conspiring with him to take Emma so they can split whatever money they can squeeze out of my son's estate. Can you prove that? I have a recording, dated 2 months before Ethan died. Victoria and Brandon making a deal. Her words, his words, all of it. Send it to me. Tonight. I will. Mrs. Morgan? Jennifer's voice was different now, harder. We're going to win this. I hung up. Sent her the audio file from the USB drive. Then I sat there in my son's basement, in the dark, and thought about what came next. They had no idea who they were up against. Never underestimate a mother. 1 week later, I received a summons. Brandon Reed had filed for full custody of Emma. The petition claimed Sarah Thompson was mentally unstable and had unlawfully fled with the child, denying the father his legal rights. Victoria filed a separate motion. She wanted a portion of Ethan's estate. Her claim, Ethan had concealed marital assets during their divorce by spending money on Sarah. Money that should have been divided between them. Jennifer called me the same day the papers arrived. We need to meet with Sarah, tomorrow, and we're going to tell the truth. All of it. The next morning, Sarah sat across from us in Jennifer's office. Emma was with a social worker. Temporary arrangement until the hearing. Sarah looked small, tired, scared. What if they take her? I reached across the table, took her hand. They won't, because Ethan left us everything we need. Jennifer spread the documents across her desk. The restraining orders, the hospital records, the recording, Ethan's notarized statement. This is what we're going to show the judge. The emergency hearing was set for 3 days later. When we walked into the courtroom, Brandon was already there, sitting at the plaintiff's table with his attorney. He looked confident, relaxed, like he'd already won. Victoria sat in the gallery behind him, arms crossed, cold eyes. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Judge Patricia Walsh. 60-something. Gray hair pulled back. Reading glasses on a chain. She looked at the case file. Then at both sides. This is an emergency petition for custody. Mr. Reed, you're claiming your daughter was unlawfully removed from your care? Brandon's lawyer stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client is the biological father. He has rights that have been violated by Miss Thompson and, subsequently, by Mrs. Morgan. The lawyer presented Brandon's case. Birth certificate, paternity established. Sarah had left without permission, denied him access to his child. Ethan Morgan interfered with his parental rights. Then it was our turn. Jennifer stood. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence that explains why Miss Thompson fled. She started with the restraining orders. 3 of them. 3 different women. All claiming Brandon Reed was violent. All expired when the victims stopped cooperating. The judge looked at Brandon. Mr. Reed, you have a history of restraining orders filed against you? Brandon's lawyer objected. Those cases were dismissed, Your Honor, because the victims were too frightened to continue. Jennifer set down the first set of documents. These are police reports filed by Sarah Thompson over a 2-year period. 4 separate incidents: assault, harassment, threats. She laid out the hospital records, photos of Sarah's injuries, the medical notes. The judge studied them, silent. Then Jennifer played the recording. Victoria's voice filled the courtroom. So you're the father Sarah's been hiding from? Brandon's voice. She took my kid. Victoria. Ethan spent money. Money that should have been mine in the divorce. Brandon. If you help me get custody, I'll split whatever we recover from his estate. Victoria. Deal. But we need to be smart. Can't look like we're working together. The recording ended. The courtroom was silent. Judge Walsh looked at Victoria. Mrs. Morgan, you're in this courtroom today? Victoria stood. Your Honor, I can explain. Sit down. The judge's voice was sharp. You'll have your turn if I call you to testify. Jennifer set down the final document. Ethan Morgan's notarized statement, written 1 week before he died. The judge read it. When she looked up, her expression had changed. Mr. Reed. The judge looked directly at Brandon. Do you have anything to say about these allegations? Your Honor, those restraining orders were misunderstandings. My ex-girlfriends were. 3 misunderstandings? With 3 different women? Brandon's lawyer tried to intervene. Your Honor, my client has never been convicted of. Because his victims were afraid. Judge Walsh set down the papers. I've seen enough. She looked at Sarah. Miss Thompson, do you believe your daughter is in danger if she's placed with Mr. Reed? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Morgan. The judge turned to me. You're requesting emergency guardianship? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Walsh made notes. Then she looked up. I'm granting temporary emergency guardianship to Ruth Morgan. Mr. Reed, you are prohibited from contacting Miss Thompson or the minor child. There will be no visitation until a full custody evaluation is completed. That will take approximately 6 months. She turned to Victoria. Mrs. Victoria Morgan, your claim on the estate is denied pending investigation into the conspiracy alleged in this recording. If the district attorney chooses to pursue charges, that's a separate matter. Brandon stood up. His face was red. Your Honor, that's my daughter. Sit down, Mr. Reed, or I'll hold you in contempt. He sat. The hearing was over. I walked out of that courtroom with Sarah beside me, Jennifer behind us. Through the glass doors, I could see the parking lot. The sky was clear. This was exactly as it was meant to be. 2 months after the hearing, Sarah and Emma moved in with me. Not into the basement. Never the basement again. They took the second floor, the master bedroom, and the room next to it. Sunlight came through the windows in the morning. Emma could see the backyard from her bed. She started calling me Grandma Ruth. Every night, I read to her, the same books that had been on the shelf in the basement, the ones Ethan had bought. Emma would curl up next to me, thumb in her mouth, and fall asleep before I finished the story. The first few weeks, she had nightmares. She'd wake up crying, calling for her mother. Sarah and I would take turns sitting with her until she fell back asleep. Sometimes she'd ask about the basement, about the dark place where they used to sleep. I'd tell her it wasn't dark anymore, that we'd made it better. Sarah got a part-time job at a coffee shop downtown. Started therapy twice a week. Started smiling again. I didn't touch the basement for the first month. I couldn't. But eventually, I went down there. It still smelled like mildew. The mattress was still pushed against the wall. The folding table was still there. I could have cleared it out, turned it back into storage, pretended none of it had happened. But that felt wrong. Instead, I turned it into something else. A memorial, not a shrine. Ethan would have hated that, but a space to remember. I hung photos on the wall. Ethan holding Emma when she was just a few weeks old. He was smiling in that photo, really smiling. I'd never seen him look that happy. I kept the bookshelf. Added more books, chapter books now. For when Emma got older, the laptop stayed on the table. The 3 videos were still there. Someday, when Emma was old enough, I'd show them to her. Let her hear her father's voice. I wrote her a letter, put it in an envelope, sealed it, left it on the shelf next to the laptop. Your father died protecting you, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. That's the kind of love that doesn't need a birth certificate. One afternoon, Sarah and I sat on the porch with iced tea. It was warm, late spring. Emma was at preschool. Sarah looked at her hands. I was so ashamed. Of what? That I couldn't protect myself. That I let Brandon hurt me for so long. I set down my tea. You survived. That's not shame. That's strength. She started crying. Not loud, just tears running down her face. Ethan never made me feel weak. He made me feel seen, like I mattered. Not because of what I could give him or what I looked like or any of that, just because I was a person who needed help, and he helped me. I reached over, took her hand. He gave me something no one else did. Time. Time to heal. Time to be a mother without being afraid every second of every day. Time to figure out who I was without someone telling me I was worthless. We sat there for a long time, not saying anything, just being. Emma asked about Ethan one night before bed. We were reading a book about a little girl who missed her grandfather. Grandma, where's my daddy? I closed the book, sat back against the headboard, pulled her closer. Your daddy's name is Ethan. He's not here anymore, but he loved you more than anything in the world. Why did he go away? I chose my words carefully. Because there were bad people who wanted to hurt you and your mom. And he stopped them. He kept you safe. Emma thought about that, her face scrunched up the way kids' faces do when they're trying to understand something big. Was he a superhero? I felt my throat tighten. Yes, sweetheart, he was. Can I see a picture of him? I pulled up a photo on my phone. Ethan and Emma at the park. She was maybe a year old. He was pushing her on a swing. She was laughing. Emma looked at the photo for a long time. Then she touched the screen with her finger. I miss him. Me too, baby. Me too. With what was left of Ethan's estate, after the legal fees and the mortgage and everything else, I set up a fund, the Ethan Morgan Safe Haven Fund. It wasn't much, maybe $10,000 to start, but it was something. The fund helped women leaving domestic violence situations, rent deposits, moving costs, legal fees, childcare, whatever they needed to start over. Jennifer Hall helped me set it up. She knew people, social workers, advocates, women's shelters. Within 6 months, we'd helped 4 families. One of them sent me a photo. A woman and her 2 kids in front of a new apartment. The woman was smiling. Really smiling. The kind of smile that reaches your eyes. The note with the photo said, "Thank you for giving us a chance." I put the photo on my refrigerator, next to a drawing Emma had made of our house. This wasn't about money. It wasn't even about justice. It was about something bigger, something Ethan understood before I did. Legacy. Not what you leave behind, but who you become in the hearts of those you save. Ethan didn't leave me money or property or anything I could hold in my hands. He left me a purpose, a reason to keep going when everything hurt. He left me, Sarah, and Emma, two people who needed someone to stand up for them when no one else would. And in doing that, he gave me a family I didn't know I needed. I stood in the basement one evening, looking at his photo on the wall, the one where he's holding Emma. His eyes are tired, but happy, proud. "I'm doing my best," I said out loud. To no one. To him. To myself. The basement was quiet. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator in the corner. The same refrigerator that had held baby formula and juice boxes and sandwich meat for 8 months. I turned off the light, went back upstairs. Sarah was making dinner. Emma was coloring at the kitchen table. "Grandma!" Emma held up her paper. "Look, I drew you." It was a stick figure with gray hair and a smile. "It's perfect, sweetheart." Emma beamed. This was legacy, this moment, this life we were building from the broken pieces of what came before. This was exactly what Ethan had wanted. 6 months passed. Emma turned 3. We had a small party in the backyard. Sarah made a cake. Emma blew out the candles and made a wish she wouldn't tell us. She was thriving. Preschool 3 days a week, friends, playdates, a normal life. Sarah was doing better too. The coffee shop promoted her to shift supervisor. She was saving money, talking about getting her own place someday. Not yet, but someday. Everything felt peaceful. Then I saw the car. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I picked Emma up from preschool like I did every Tuesday and Thursday. She ran out with her backpack, showing me a painting she'd made. A house, a sun, 3 stick figures. "That's you, Mommy, and me," she said. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." I buckled her into her car seat, started the engine. That's when I noticed the car parked down the street, maybe 50 yards away. Dark blue sedan, windows tinted. I couldn't see who was inside, but I knew. Brandon. I drove home, checked the rearview mirror the whole way. The car didn't follow. But the next day, it was there again. Same spot, same car. I called the police. "Ma'am, is he approaching you?" "No. He's just sitting in his car, down the street from the preschool." "Is he violating the restraining order?" "He's watching us." "That's a violation." The officer's voice was patient. "Ma'am, unless he makes contact or comes within 100 feet, we can't arrest him. We'll send a patrol car to check on the situation." They sent someone. The patrol car drove by. Brandon's car was gone by the time they arrived. The officer took a report. Told me to call if he approached. I stood there with the phone in my hand after he hung up. The dial tone hummed. Then silence. I stared at the preschool across the street. Empty parking lot, no dark blue sedan. But he'd be back tomorrow, and I couldn't stop him. That night, after Sarah put Emma to bed, I went down to the basement. I hadn't been down there in weeks, maybe months. The photos were still on the wall. The laptop was still on the table. I opened it. The 3 videos were in the folder. I'd watched all of them, multiple times. But then I noticed something. A 4th file, small, easy to miss. The name, "If He Comes Back, MP4. I clicked it. Ethan appeared. This video was different. He wasn't sitting down, he was standing. The camera was propped on something, pointing at him. He looked directly at the lens. "Mom, if you're watching this, Brandon violated the restraining order." His voice was steady, calm. "If he's following you, if he's watching the house, if he's anywhere near Emma, call the police immediately and show them this." Ethan stepped aside. The camera stayed where it was. Now I could see what he'd been standing in front of. A phone, on speaker, recording. A man's voice came through. Brandon's voice. "You think you can hide her forever? I know where you live, Ethan. I know you're at your mom's old house. I've been watching. I know everything." Ethan's voice. "You need to stay away from them." Brandon laughed. Or what? You'll call the cops? They can't do anything. I'm her father. I have rights. You gave up those rights when you put Sarah in the hospital. That was an accident. She's dramatic. She always has been. Stay away from them, Brandon. You can't protect them forever. Sooner or later, you're going to slip, and when you do, I'll be there. The recording ended. The video went black. I sat there in the basement, staring at the laptop screen. If Brandon was watching us, he was planning something. I saved the video to a USB drive, put it in my purse, and waited. 3 days later, I went to pick up Emma from preschool. Brandon wasn't in his car anymore. He was standing at the gate, right outside the fence, hands in his pockets, watching. I held Emma's hand tighter as we walked out. She was talking about something that happened during circle time. I wasn't listening. I was watching him. When we got close to the gate, he stepped forward. I just want to see her. That's my daughter. I stopped, put myself between him and Emma. Step back. He took another step forward. Emma, honey, do you remember me? Emma looked up at him. Then back at me. She shook her head. One of the teachers came running out. Sir, you need to leave. I'm calling the police. Brandon held up his hands. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just talking. But he didn't move back. I had a choice in that moment. I could scream, make a scene, let Emma see me lose control. Or I could stay calm, keep her safe, show her that even when things are scary, we don't fall apart. I chose the second option. I picked Emma up, turned my back on Brandon, walked back toward the building. Call 911, now. The teacher already had her phone out. Inside, we waited in the director's office. Emma sat on my lap. She wasn't crying. She was quiet, looking at me. Are you scared, Grandma? I smoothed her hair back. No, sweetheart, I'm not scared. I'm just making sure you're safe. The police arrived in 10 minutes. 2 officers. The same ones who'd come to the house months ago. Brandon was still outside, still standing by the gate. Officer, I wasn't threatening anyone. I just wanted to talk to my daughter. I have rights. One of the officers looked at me. Ma'am, is there a restraining order? Yes. I pulled out my phone, showed them the court documents I kept saved, and this is the 3rd time he's violated it. I pulled out the USB drive from my purse. I also have video evidence, recorded by my son before he died. Brandon threatening him, admitting he'd been watching us. The officer took the drive. We'll need to review this. The preschool had security cameras. The director showed the officers the footage. Brandon approaching, me stepping back, him stepping forward. They arrested him. As they put him in the back of the patrol car, he looked at me through the window. His eyes said, "This isn't over." After Brandon was arrested, Sarah and I sat in the living room. Emma was asleep on the couch between us, her thumb in her mouth, her other hand holding the stuffed rabbit from the basement. "It's over," Sarah whispered. I looked at her. "Not yet. There's something I need to ask you." She waited. "Ethan," I chose my words carefully. Was he Emma's biological father? The silence stretched, long enough that I knew the answer before she said it. She shook her head. "No." I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. "Brandon is?" "Yes." Sarah stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street where Brandon's car had been parked for days. "When I told Ethan I was pregnant, I lied." Her voice was flat. "I said the baby was his." "Why?" "Because I was desperate. I needed someone to believe me, to protect me. And Ethan, he was kind. He was the first person who'd been kind to me in years." She turned around. "I thought if I told him the truth, he'd leave, and I couldn't survive that. So I lied." "How long before you told him?" 6 months. Emma was 6 months old. I couldn't keep lying anymore. It was eating me alive. "What did he say?" Sarah's voice broke. "I expected him to throw me out, to tell me I'd used him, to hate me. But he didn't." She shook her head. He looked at Emma. She was sleeping in her crib, and he said, "She's mine now. Biology doesn't change that." I sat there, trying to process this. Everything I thought I knew about my son, everything I thought I understood about this situation. "There's one more video," I said. "What?" "On the laptop. I saw the file name weeks ago, but I couldn't bring myself to open it. We went down to the basement. Sarah hadn't been down there since they'd moved upstairs. She looked around at the photos on the wall, the books, the memorial I'd made. I opened the laptop, found the file. For Mom, the whole truth. I clicked play. Ethan appeared on screen. This video was different from the others. He was smiling, tired, but smiling. Mom, by now you probably know. I'm not Emma's biological father. Sarah sat down hard on the folding chair. Sarah told me when Emma was 6 months old. And honestly, it doesn't matter. Ethan leaned forward. I've changed her diapers at 3 a.m. I've rocked her to sleep when she was crying. I've watched her take her first steps right there in that basement because she couldn't go outside. I've sung her songs, made her laugh, taught her how to stack blocks. Brandon gave her DNA. That's all, just DNA. But I gave her love, safety, a chance to grow up without fear. He looked directly at the camera. If you're watching this, it means you're taking care of them now. Sarah and Emma, my family. Thank you for loving them the way I did, for seeing what I saw. That family isn't about blood, it's about choice. I chose them, and I hope you choose them too. The video ended. Sarah was crying. Not quiet tears, deep sobs that shook her whole body. I put my arm around her. He knew, she said. He knew the whole time, and he never made me feel guilty, never threw it in my face, never used it against me. I know. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you taking care of us. I lied to him. I lied to you. I turned off the laptop, looked at her. He was right. Emma's not his daughter by blood, but she was his child in every way that mattered. She was his compatible soul. What does that mean? I stood up, looked at the photo on the wall, Ethan holding baby Emma, both of them smiling. It means biology is just the starting point. Love is what makes you family. Emma isn't my blood granddaughter, but she's my granddaughter by choice, Ethan's choice, and now mine. I looked at Sarah. You did what you had to do to survive, to protect your daughter. Ethan understood that, and so do I. But, no buts, your family, both of you, not because of DNA, because you're here, because you showed up when it mattered, because my son loved you enough to die protecting you. That's what makes you mine. Sarah pulled me into a hug. We stood there in that basement, in the space where she'd hidden for 8 months, where Emma had taken her first steps, where Ethan had given them a second chance. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you when the truth is ugly and complicated and hard. Ethan showed up every single day for a child who wasn't his. That's family. I looked at Sarah. She was still crying, waiting for me to say something, waiting for me to judge her. I'm not angry. She looked up, surprised. What? Ethan chose you. He chose Emma. And if he could love her knowing the truth, then I can too. But I lied to him. I lied to you. You survived. That's what matters. You did what you had to do to protect your daughter, and Ethan understood that. I took her hand. Emma is my granddaughter, not by blood, but by choice, and that's stronger than any DNA test. Sarah pulled me into another hug. We stood there for a long time, in the basement where everything had started, where Ethan had hidden them, where he'd kept them safe, because at the end of the day, family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you when the truth is ugly and complicated and painful. Ethan showed up every single day for a child who wasn't his. That's family. 1 year later, Brandon was sentenced to 18 months in prison for violating the restraining order. 3 counts. The judge didn't go easy on him. Victoria disappeared from our lives. No more phone calls, no more claims on the estate. Jennifer said she'd heard Victoria move to another state, started over. I didn't ask for details. I didn't care. Emma turned 4. She's in preschool full-time now. She has friends. She laughs. She's never asked about Brandon. She doesn't remember him. Sarah saved enough for a deposit on a small apartment across town. 2 bedrooms, close to Emma's school. She's moving out next month. Not because she has to, because she's ready. We'll still have dinner every Sunday. Emma will still spend weekends here, but Sarah needs her own space, her own life. And I understand that. Every night before bed, she asks the same question. Tell me about Daddy Ethan. And I do. I tell her about how he was brave, how he loved books, how he made the best pancakes, how he kept people safe. She listens with wide eyes. Then she falls asleep holding the stuffed rabbit. I repainted the basement last month. It's not dark anymore. We put in better lighting, a bigger window. Sarah and I turned it into a playroom for Emma. There are toys now, books, a small table where she colors. Sunlight comes through the window in the afternoon. The water leak was fixed. No more dripping. So, if you ask me, was it worth it? Breaking that promise? Going down to that basement? I'd say yes. 1,000 times yes. Because I didn't just find Sarah and Emma down there. I found out who my son really was. Not perfect, but good, so good. And I learned something I should have known all along. Family isn't about whose blood you carry. It's about whose life you change, who you protect when no one else will, who you love when loving them costs you everything. Ethan knew that, and now, so do I. Tell me if you've been here too, if you've ever had to choose between a promise and a life.